Welcome back to The Forge. We are in the middle of the second 18 and we are exploring the sayings of the Gospel of Thomas in their themed groups. Those themed groups have been put together by the use of the Thomas Code. The next two that we're going to be looking at, 2.9 and 2.10, are covered by the theme of the body versus the living spirit. Now, I can't find another way of describing that. So we'll explore that theme of body versus the living spirit as we go through, and it will become that little bit clearer. 2.9. I stood in the middle of the world, and I appeared to them in the flesh. I found them all drunk, and none amongst them was thirsty. My soul grieved for the sons of men, for they are blind in their hearts and do not see, for they came into the world empty, and they are destined to depart from the world empty. However, now they are drunk. When they have thrown off their wine, they will then repent. 2.10. If the flesh came into being because of the Spirit, it is a marvel. But if the Spirit came into being because of the body, that is the marvel of marvels. I marvel at how this great wealth has settled in this poverty. So, a reminder, the theme here that we need to be understanding is how we regard the body and the living spirit. Well, for the vast majority of people, it is just simply the body. And that's what 2.9 tells us. It tells us that the vast amount of people, in this case, they're drunk. But what he's saying is that they are immersed and intoxicated by the physical world. And that's all that they can see. And the vast majority of conversations and interactions and relationships that you have with people will be based around the physical world and what needs to be done and what you do within that. And that is simply because people don't have the information and the knowledge that they need about the non-physical dimension. That is completely missing within the minds of the majority of people. And that's what this saying is telling us. The fascinating thing is the beginning of 2.9. I stood in the middle of the world, and I appeared to them in flesh. That's not the sort of thing that a person says. It's not even the sort of thing that an enlightened or a person of unity would say. When we look at this, we have this understanding that Jesus had attained a connection with a higher consciousness that was able to speak through him. We could call that channeling, perhaps. But those words, I stood in the middle of the world and I appeared to them in flesh. He's not saying, I stood up and spoke to the people in front of me. It is a consciousness that is coming through him, which is using that physical body to convey thoughts. That's an extraordinary thing that we are witnessing in this saying. I found them all drunk, and none of them were thirsty. Again, that is just saying that the vast majority of people are simply not going to be interested in the message that we have here. It's only going to be the few currently. That will grow, that will change. But currently, most people are not thirsty. They're not after this kind of knowledge. There's no consequence to them. It doesn't affect their physical lives in any way. There are not those people searching for it. Then we have a line which says, my soul grieved for the Son of Men, for they are blind in their hearts and do not see. My soul. It's not saying my spirit, soul. The soul of the person of Jesus. The soul here is that basic consciousness which is within every human. It's the blank canvas which, when born, that blank canvas consciousness is connected to the living spirit. It is looking in that direction. These two are sort of bound together. And then as the physical world takes its effect, the soul then is bonded to the familiar self, the ego. And it loses that living spirit. It loses that connection. That's why it's so difficult for us to re-engage, because the consciousness, the soul within us is connected to the physical world and all the influences and all the attachments that it has. Now, here we can see that Jesus' soul, the part which is within the physical body, is grieving for the sons of men because it's been there. It has experienced what it's like to live without knowledge of the living spirit and the other consciousness that it is immersed in. So it is the soul that is resonating with other humans because it knows that place that they are currently in. And it also knows that if they have this knowledge and they start to transform, then their lives will change. And they will drop that need for things of the physical world, the desires that they have. Here it's wine and being drunk. The saying continues with, they come into the world empty and they leave the world empty. When they leave the world empty, it is saying that they've missed that opportunity to discover the real treasure, the real wealth, and that is to live a life that is connected to this non-physical consciousness that we are surrounded by. That's the real wealth. And if you find unity, if you find that connection, then you leave with that treasure because you become bonded to the living spirit. That's an extraordinary idea. And that's that place of unity that we are being asked to go and find. 2:10, it sort of expands on that idea, and we're back into the body versus the living spirit. That is the kind of overriding theme here. If the flesh came into being because of the spirit, it is a marvel. If the spirit came into being because of the body, it's the marvel of marvels. Here it is saying the physical world was created from the non-physical, not the other way around. Human beings cannot make spirit. Spirit makes the physical, not the physical makes spirit. That's not possible. That's not how it works. That's not what can happen. And yet people talk in terms of things that they belong to them, and they'll say my soul or my spirit, and the spirit doesn't belong to them. It is within them. It animates them. But it is the other way around. The physical is the thing that is being animated by the non-physical. So spirit creates flesh, not the other way around. And the saying finishes with, I marvel at how this great wealth has settled in this poverty. And it is that theme which continues to crop up, which is darkness, poverty. Here, it's the idea that this immense living consciousness, this state of consciousness, has created a place that lacks that one element which would transform everything. And that is knowledge that there is this non-physical dimension which is underpinning all of this. And how would we all respond and act? How would our relationships be between each other and the world around us if we all had that connection? And without it, we create this spiritless world where wealth and greed and power and control are the things that govern everyone. We are cogs in a machine. And the way to break that is to understand that we have this living spirit and there is an underpinning consciousness, which is a dimension to us that we all need to find. When we do that, we will start to relate to our world and each other completely differently. So, 2.9 and 2.10, looking at the body and the living spirit, the physical and the non-physical dimension